Welcome to another week of Vigorously with me, your girl Val Kleinhands. It is a Monday, and that means we are keeping things moving with a Music Monday. We had a little bit of a moment, I should say, to reset, rejuvenate, and we're back. We're back. We're having fun. It's Halloween week. It is Halloween week, so you know your girl is going to be doing her thing because this is my week. I am Jack Skellington coming to life, okay? Because I miss you all, and because I am trying so hard to just make this more and more a part of my life because it is my hobby, it is what I like to do, and I like to share it with all of you because I'm pretty sure you're into the same things if you're here. Now, those of you who are here are probably, largely, I would say, somewhere between 25 and 45. You're probably a female, and you're probably also a metalhead. If you're a dude, that age range might be a little bit different. But hey, I'm glad you're here regardless. I'm sure some of you are non-binary as well. Welcome, all of you. Thank you for being here. This week, for our Music Monday edition of Vigorously, I thought that it might be fun to recap what I did over the weekend, and that is, I saw Lorna Shore in Minneapolis, and this is what happened. Yeah, we're going to do a little bit of a recap this week because, man, was it a show. Will Ramos was not kidding when he said, this is the biggest production that Lorna Shore has done. I don't doubt him. This was organized. This was planned. This was a production. There was lighting. There was video. And it all suited the vibe of the night. But before we get into them as headliners, let's back up just a little bit and chat about the show and leading up to it beforehand on that day. So for us in Minneapolis, the show came October 24th. It was a Friday night. Already, you're ready to go. That's already a good start. I did work half the day, and I cut out of work early so that we could go to this because we have seen Lorna Shore before, my husband and I. And, my brother-in-law, we have seen Lorna Shore before. That's where I collected this hoodie from. I did not get merch at this past show, but I had this before, and I'm very happy with it, which is why I decided not to make a purchase this time. However, last time we saw Lorna Shore, we just felt like we didn't see enough of them. We saw them on tour with Mastodon and Gojira. I believe it was a Monsters tour a few summers ago, while Brent was still here. And that was fantastic. No complaints whatsoever musically. However, I left wanting more. And I feel like my husband did as well. So that's why we decided we were going to get a couple of friends of ours in the area were also chatting about going to this show too. And we were like, screw it. Let's go join them. So this ended up being not just a date night, but an outing with friends. An outing with friends from the area. So this is what we do. We took it back. We got so nostalgic with it that before the show, we meet up, we pick everybody up, everybody piles into the car, everybody piles into our little Kia Soul, and we immediately are like, okay, time to hit the gas station. We need to load up. Gas station food. Let me chat about gas station food for a minute. It is underrated, that you can find things that are fulfilling in these gas stations, and yet you're not breaking the bank, and you're still walking away feeling like you had a meal, and it's convenient, and it's right there, and you didn't have to endure hours and hours of traffic. You didn't have to wait for your food to come out or whatever. So, gas station stops, underrated. Used to do that all the time. We did it this time because, again, we were going to this one with friends. So we go to a Quick Trip. We go to a Pilot. We load up on supplies beforehand. Snacks. I got like a steak burger, one of those burgers that have been sitting under a heat lamp. I know it's not healthy, but whatever. It's what we were doing. It was the vibe of the night. And then grabbed some quick ice cream and some water, and we were off and running. We did not hit as much traffic as I thought we would, given that doors for this one were a little bit early. The doors open at 5, but we didn't get there right at 5. We got there more at like six o'clock, like an hour later. Like, but we knew that the show itself wasn't going to start until 6:30. And the reason why this was a little bit earlier is because there were 4 bands to enjoy this evening. Peeling Flesh, Shadow of Intent, of course, Black Dahlia Murder, and the headliners Lorna Shore were all part of this one. And this is, if you can do it, or if you can see any iteration of any of these bands again in the future, do it. Because it will be money well spent. I promise you that. I became a little bit familiar with Peeling Flesh because, to me, they're getting some attention online lately. They're getting some attention on Loudwire, which is usually what I browse. Just one of the few things that I browse if I want an update on metal news. Whole debate on Cup and the Mic. Their singer was all for it. And yes, that proved true when I watched them live. The mic is cupped for this, okay? And I didn't hate that. What I hated a little bit more was that the venue, I don't know, to my ear, and anybody that runs sound professionally can maybe walk me through this or fill in some blanks here in the comments. But for the first 3 bands, Peeling Flesh, Shadow of Intent, and Black Dahlia Murder, I felt like the vocals were just kind of muted. And I understand that the nature of the music would contribute to that as well. This isn't Freddie Mercury soaring over Brian May. I know that. But it would have been nice if there was a little bit of a bump in volume level, at least to my ear, for the vocals for those first 3 bands. Because, man, it just seemed a little bit muted. However, plenty of guitar. You heard the guitar, baby. And to be honest, that's a big part of why we're all here anyway. So, one con, but how much of a con really was it? Not enough to make me leave, I'll put it that way. It was enough to make me enjoy the show and go get a drink at the bar, which is exactly what we did. So we enjoyed Peeling Flesh, no issues there. They set the tone of the night. I'm telling you, this band, if you ever have a chance to see, yes, they're a slam band. They're making a name for themselves right now. They've been around for a minute now, and I think, at least to me, I feel like I'm seeing more and more about them within the metal community as well. Like we're talking more about them now. And this isn't as though I'm saying they came out of nowhere. No, I'm not saying that. I just want to make that really clear. I'm aware that they've been around for a minute. However, I think now they're gaining some traction. Now we've got our eyes on them. And for good reason. Because they had the energy in place. And they were the perfect opener for a lineup like this because they got everybody moving. It's a slam band we were all excited for. And the vibes were on. You could tell. It reflected in the audience of who showed up at, for us, the venue was called The Myth. That's where the show was. This was also my first time at The Myth, for locals asking. Yes, this was my first time at The Myth. I had not seen a show in Minnesota, in my own state, at The Myth yet. I have been to First Ave a number of times. I've been to the Paragon Theater, the Orpheum. I have been to US Bank Stadium for shows. I've been to Target Center for shows. Again, First Ave a number of times. Caboose a couple of times. I've been there. But this was my first time at the Myth, and I understand that this is it's a place where shows go too. Like, it's a venue for, I would call it like medium-sized audiences, in my opinion. So this was our first time there. Didn't hate it. The actual structure of the Myth itself, of the venue itself, was very conducive to a safe pit atmosphere because there were levels, right? And there were levels that were, you know how sometimes a pool can, like, there's a deep end, there's a shallow end, and there's like this, there's a grade. Well, the Myth was sort of structured like that in the sense that the pit was the pit. I'll put it to you that way. And then there was another level where people could stand. And then another level where the bars and the merch were where people could stand. And then there was still a balcony type area in addition to that. So if you wanted to avoid the pit, you could. It was very easy to. I was a little bit concerned that this type of a setup would be a bit restrictive, but it was not. It was not. I still felt like I could move around if I absolutely had to. Now, let's get into that for a minute too. This show was packed. I guarantee you they sold out. If they didn't sell out, they were damn near close to it because there were so many people. And the nice thing about this particular show, and I think it did have to do with the lineup, is that there was some diversity in this audience as well. That people who showed up for the show were there truly for the music, truly for the bands, and even if you weren't, they were still pretty respectful about how they were partying. So I had no complaints, but there was definitely a little more competition in the bathroom as a female this time. So, I use the word competition loosely, but there were definitely more women in the bathrooms. There was more of a line to get to the women's room a little bit than normally. And yeah, that had to do with who was playing that night. And I'm completely fine with that. So it was diverse. It was diverse and it was definitely a good vibe. I don't think anybody was there to just be a problem. And depending on the band, depending on the audience, sometimes you have to be aware of that. Well, that was not the case with this particular show and this particular lineup. No complaints from anybody's set at all. Not at all, especially Black Dahlia. Black Dahlia treated us to some oldies but goodies. They went back 20 years a few times in their set. I got to know Shadow of Intent this time. Wasn't super familiar with them before. Slight familiarity, but got more familiar this evening. And then we had the headliners, the stars of the show, a one Will Ramos and company, Lorna Shore. Now, this man got on stage, said that he was thrilled to be here. Obviously, that's kind of standard. But there were a few points where I think even Will was like, I can't believe I'm doing this right now. And we all ate it up. We were like, yeah, you are headlining. Like, you are doing this now. Like, this is your tour and you've earned it. At one point in the show, Will said that this was the biggest production that Lorna Shore itself had put on ever, period. And I hope, and I'll just say it, I hope Will knows that he's a large part of that. The way that he connects with fans, the things that he can do with those vocals. My God, To the Hellfire Live. Let's get into that. To the Hellfire Live. It was as good as a recording. The sounds, the cadence of those sounds, the animalistic nature of those sounds. It was all captured that night. Will can do the damn thing, and he can do it live. It was beautiful to see that it wasn't just for the record. He can really do it. He can really make those sounds that not a lot of other vocalists can do. And that was impressive. And when he said that this was the biggest production that Lorna Shore had done, I believed it because it was obvious to me that there was some thought put into this. I don't know for certain that this was the first time they were headliners, but they were acting like it. They were acting like they were grateful to be there and that they were ready to put on something that had a good vibe and had some thought behind it. There was video involved, and the video kind of alternated between some like sort of artistic death scenes, but also with nature. It kind of was going back and forth between both of those themes all night. And that was for every song. And that was for the entire night. And everything matched. If you were watching To the Hellfire Live, you had fire and flames in video behind. That's just one example. I appreciated their stage setup, and I bet their drummer did too this time as well, because the drummer was elevated. There were two levels, and they turned it into kind of like two giant TV screens, so to speak, and their drummer was elevated on the top level, and then everybody else was, regular first, like, main stage level with video on either side of them, video playing behind them, on both level. So there was some thought put into the imagery that was used in each song for sure. And there was definitely some thought put into the lighting. The lighting was everywhere. The lighting was on and popping, different colored lights, having it flashing appropriately when you know some breakdowns were coming in. Just moments like that. Like there was obviously some care and thought put behind this evening. And it was obvious to me that I believe all of the bands were happy to be there. Nobody gave me the vibe that they weren't. But for certain, it definitely seemed like Lorna Shore themselves were like, we're doing this right now. I caught band members like looking at each other and just in amazement, smiling at each other. Like, it seemed to me like they were processing how big this really was. So if it wasn't their first time headlining, it very well could have been. And that would definitely explain some of the excitement there. And rightfully so. They pulled off a fabulous night. Nobody complained. Everybody got home safe. I mean, crowd surfing was in full effect. We had 2 banana crowd surfers in the banana costumes. I love it when people do that at shows. I've seen a chicken do that before. I've seen a Jesus do that before. Oddly, I think both of these were at Opeth. I don't know why, but both of them seem to happen at Opeth from what I remember. And then, it just, again, there were some bananas just popped up at the Lorna Shore show, and they were having a great time. Yeah, it was hot. Yeah, we were kind of put together like sardines for a few moments, but was it worth it to watch how exciting this all was and to see people that were genuinely happy to be there? Yes. And also, speaking about the sound, going back to the sound, for whatever reason, and I don't know why, but it seemed like the muted vocals were not a thing during Lorna Shore's set. So somebody figured it out eventually. And we could hear well just fine and clearly. And everybody really honestly had a good time. I don't have any critiques. We got the essentials with their set too. We got Into the Earth. We got Cursed to Die. We got Sun Eater, To the Hellfire, which is really what new ones, Unbreakable and Oblivion from the new album. They were definitely there too. Obviously, that's the whole reason they were touring to begin with, but that was a treat. And the encore itself was obviously Pain Remains 1, 2, 3. The whole Pain Remains cluster. That was the encore. And if you're Lorna Shore, what other encore do you need? You don't. It was perfect. So the set was great. No complaints there whatsoever. And I don't know what I would have done differently if I were Lorna Shore. It seemed organized. It seemed like everybody was having a good time. And I have no complaints. Let me just go back to a couple of the standouts from the other sets as well. Shadow of Intent, The Heretic Prevails. That was one that stood out to me. Flying the Black Flag. Flying the Black Flag was kind of my gateway to Shadow of Intent to get myself a little bit familiar before the show. They did play that one live. That was a standout for me that I very much enjoyed. And like I said, Black Dahlia, I mean, they are Black Dahlia. We miss Trevor, of course. But considering they did Everything Went Black, and that's what I wanted to hear, and they know that. Funeral Tryst, Nocturnal, like A Horrible Night to Have a Curse. They basically, in my opinion, hit the essentials as well. So everybody did a great job with their sets. PeelingFlesh, I want to get to know a little bit more. I want to get to know them better now after this show. So that's why I'm definitely shouting them out with this podcast episode too. No complaints. If you were there, let me know. Hopefully you enjoyed the show as well. It sounded a little bit like this. And I mean what I said. If you get a chance to see PeelingFlesh, Shadow of Intent, or Black Dahlia Murder, or Lorna Shore again, take that chance. It will be money well spent, and you will enjoy yourself. I leave you with that. That is my very quick recap. It ended up being quicker than I thought, but I I don't have any criticisms. I don't have anything negative to say. I really, truly have all positives. I wasn't mad that I was there. Wasn't mad that I was there. And there was obviously, some thought and care put behind this setup. Everybody was on time too. I didn't feel like the set dragged at all. Bands were they were on the clock and they knew it and they made it happen. Everybody got what they were allotted and everybody had a good time in response. And I hope that particularly, the ones that I hope if you didn't know any of those bands that you're a fan now, because I think they earned it. So like I said, great tour. If you get the chance to see any of them live, do it. I will do another recap video at my next show, which I am planning to be Spirit Box next month. They're coming to Minneapolis next month with Periphery. So that's what's next on my concert calendar. And I will do another recap at that time. If you ended up liking this one, we'll see how this goes. Because the girlies are going to show up for Courtney. We already know that. Man, I cannot wait. I'm a girly that's going to show up for Courtney. Let's get that correct right now. I'm excited for that one. So we'll do a recap at that time. And we'll do another one when they're here. Literally like in a month. Yeah. A little bit less than a month, and right before Thanksgiving is when they'll be here. So we'll do another recap at that time. If there's anything else you want me to touch on for this Music Mondays situation that we have going on for Vigorously, let me know. That's what I wanted to chat about. I'd also want to chat about some more new music, and when we get some Friday releases this coming Halloween, we're going to chat about those as well, probably over Halloween weekend. And enjoy that. I've got my eye on Howling Giant, and I hope you do too, because I've had the pleasure of interviewing them before on this podcast. It was insane. They're very chill guys, and it was a good time. I mean, they're sludge. Like they're stoner sludge, pretty traditional in those aspects. So I'm expecting that that's probably what we'll get more of from this upcoming album, but we'll check in once it's released on Friday. So shout out to them. That's our music chat for the week. We'll see you next time. We'll do another episode on Wednesday. That's going to be a solo moment from me, but we'll see you then, and we'll talk music more then. Have a great week. Bye.